Broadcasting from the Unshackled Studios in Melbourne, this is WilmsFront, brought to you by theunshackled.net. Now here's Tim Wilms.
Hello everyone and welcome to another Sunday night show. The date is the 20th of October 2019. It is 7:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, a bit later on a Sunday night as per last week, but this is the second Sunday night show I've done after I took a 2-week hiatus, so better late than not having a show at all, as I like to say. It is just me for this show tonight because I want to catch up and comment on some of the latest international news that has happened over the past week. And we are live at the moment on YouTube, the Tim Wilms channel, so you can join in the live chat. And we also are live over on Entropy, which is the enhanced YouTube software where you can ask me questions. I can create a poll if I feel like it, and best of all, you can send through super chats where I will read your comment out live on the air, your thoughts, and interact with you, which I can do probably best on these solo shows. I see a few regulars already in the chat, so thanks for joining me tonight. So, what's been happening, well, internationally, not just past week, but past 24 hours, because the British Parliament has been sitting on a Saturday because Boris Johnson, he reached a new deal with the European Union, which it's basically the same as Theresa May's deal, except that it removes the Irish backstop, which, in case you don't know, it means that there's now no soft border between Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, because there's if you know your British history, that the Republic of Ireland is a member of the European Union, while Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, which is leaving the EU. But of course, Ireland is, as the name suggests, it's one island, but there's Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, of course. If you want to summarize it, basically it is Catholic Republic of Ireland and Protestant Northern Ireland. But obviously Irish people live in both segments, and because it is one island, there's a lot of debate about what to do. Should there be a strong, because part of being in the European Union is the free movement of people, and same with customs as well. So that's been a sticking point. So Boris Johnson, he's got basically Theresa May's deal 2.0, and now he's asking the British Parliament to vote on it, because they made no-deal Brexit illegal, that Boris Johnson couldn't leave on the 31st of October without a deal. But the thing is, any deal he negotiates now has to be passed by the politicians, and so if they vote it down, then the UK will crash out of the European Union on October 31st without a deal, and Boris Johnson will have broken the law. Now they've legislated that he has to write to the European Union to request an extension, which he's done, but he said in the letter, I don't think an extension is what is best for us. But the granting of an extension, it's out of his hands, because any European Union member state can veto it, and it's most likely going to be France's Emmanuel Macron is going to veto it, which means if there's not an extension beyond October 31st and the House of Commons, the UK Parliament, does not pass Boris Johnson's deal, then they'll crash out of the EU on October 31st. Which I basically think what's going to happen is they're going to blame Boris Johnson for this, even though the politicians rejected his deal, and they're claiming that he broke the law by saying personally he didn't want an extension, but he was forced to write one. So I reckon that because The Labour Party is now firmly anti-Brexit. The Liberal Democrats are firmly anti-Brexit, and there's enough Tory traitors, and well, of course, the Democratic Unionist Party doesn't like the Irish backstop being removed. But on October 31st, if there's not an extension, I reckon they will arrest and charge Boris Johnson with breaking the law. They will lock him up and have him as a political prisoner. As basically, it'll be a globalist arrest to say that if you dare stand up for national sovereignty as a leader of a democratic nation, we will imprison you. That's basically where I think it's going to happen, because Boris Johnson, he's really going all out to try and achieve what the British people voted for in the 2016 Leave referendum. He previously said, "I'd rather die in a ditch than delay Brexit." So he's not thinking about his own political future, let alone his personal freedom. He's wanting to do what is right by the British public. So he's put it all on the line. He's taken on all the globalists. I just wonder if it's Emmanuel Macron who rejects an extension. What are the globalists going to do? Or in the UK, are they going to demand that Emmanuel Macron be extradited to the United Kingdom for breaking UK law? That would you wouldn't put it past them. But that's how ridiculous things are getting. So it's looming the October 31st. That's the day that the UK is due to leave the European Union unless an extension is granted. So it's the 20th today, less than 2 weeks. The House of Commons is going to be back on Monday to see if they will vote on Boris Johnson's deal. And it was quite hilarious that Jeremy Corbyn said that he was going to vote against the deal before details of the deal were announced. This is how... Well, basically Corbyn, because he is a national socialist, he's been captured by the cucks globalists in his party, and of course he wants to be Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn. So he's doing the globalist bidding now. This long life British nationalist has now been cucked by the the globalists who've taken over Europe and the United Kingdom. See a few people joining in the chat. Of course, I will be checking entropy throughout the evening, so make sure you come on over, ask a question, or send through a super chat. I'll put the link in the description again. Now going on to, because I've also titled this episode Turkexit, because there was mass hysteria by the neoconservatives and also the establishment mainstream media when President Donald Trump announced that US troops were being moved from Northern Syria and being reallocated elsewhere in the country. And this was spun as it was a betrayal of the Kurds, our greatest ally, because they helped defeat ISIS. But the reason why Trump moved the troops is because ISIS has been defeated. That was the objective there. I don't get how American troops are meant to fight for Kurdish independence, sovereignty, or anything else. It's a non-existent nation. Kurdistan doesn't exist. It's an autonomous region in Iraq, but it's not a real country. So they're claiming that Trump has betrayed a non-existent ally. That's how absurd the situation has got. But lo and behold, despite all of this accusations that Trump would have blood on his hands, and Turkey moving into Northern Syria because they want to return Syrian war refugees, and also want to make sure that the Kurds aren't going to set up their own independent state on the Turkish border. They've claimed there's going to be a Kurdish genocide. There'll be blood on Trump's hand. So non-interventionism makes you a complicit in genocide. That's how it's being spun now. But Trump has basically achieved his objectives, because the Kurds, they're now aligning with the Syrian president Bashar Assad. They said the Kurds, they had no choice, but that's what Trump wanted them to do. So he's forced their hand, basically getting them to into an alliance with the Syrian government, because that will best protect them independently when the US is not there. And of course, there was all this footage being reported in the mainstream media of these Turkish offensives in Syrian Kurdish towns, which ABC News admitted that the gunfire that they used, it was from a shooting range in the United States. It wasn't actually from Syria, which again shows the dishonesty of the mainstream media there, that they still think that they can get away with misleading the American public and they won't get caught out on it. It's quite incredible. And I'll take this opportunity to remind you about the CNN tapes that Project Veritas released of James O'Keefe, where basically it's CNN chair Jeff Zucker basically directing that all of CNN's coverage is going to be about Trump's impeachment, that they're news makers, not news breakers now, the mainstream media, or news making ups. That's probably what you've got to call them. Now going on, I'm making good time tonight. Oh yes, the election 2020, the presidential election. Now the Democrat Party primaries don't get underway until January with the Iowa caucuses. Of course, Trump is facing some token opposition in the Republican primaries. The most prominent is former Representative Mark Sanford from South Carolina. He was actually the governor of South Carolina, and of course, he's supposed to be the GOP's sole candidate to get their soul back, but he had to resign as South Carolina governor because he disappeared overseas to be with his mistress, and that's why it was amazing that he managed to get back into elected office by winning a South Carolina congressional special election. I think he was down in Argentina, one of those Latin American country, but apparently he's the moral fiber of the Democrat party. So that's who basically that's Trump's greatest challenger in the primaries. But of course, the Democrat primary is where it's at. On Wednesday night show of WilmsFront, I did a bit of a review of the fourth round of Democrat presidential debates on CNN. Now, Elizabeth Warren is now the front runner because, well, Joe Biden is losing his mind and Bernie Sanders seems to be, his body is failing. Of course, he's had those heart troubles, and so Elizabeth Warren, she's 70, just turned 70. So she is the most healthy old candidate that the Democrats have got. She's a democratic socialist, so similar to Bernie Sanders, and of course she's the fake Native American. She claimed that she had Native American heritage, and it turned out when she took a DNA test, I don't know why she did, she had less Cherokee than ordinary Americans, or something 0.001, and Trump used to taunt her as being Pocahontas. Which, of course, if she became the Democrat presidential nominee, Trump would just call her Pocahontas relentlessly and drive her nuts. Because that's been the big thing. Like, how you're going to cope with Trump's attacks, is name calling, all that sort of stuff. They've got to prove their toughness. The rest of the candidates in the Democrat primaries, the Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, all of the other senators basically are all mediocre. And then, of course, you've got the next generation who aren't in this debate, or should I say primary, but they're batshit crazy. Well, speaking of the younger generation of the Democrats, the squad made up of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rihanna Presley, and of course Rashida Tlaib, they announced that they were endorsing Bernie Sanders for president. Now, well, they're a democratic socialist grouping in the Congress. So of course they would endorse probably the greatest democratic socialist the United States has ever produced, Bernie Sanders. But it's funny, they're for women of color, but they're endorsing an old white dude, which a lot of people have pointed out that the democratic socialists who preach about intersectionality, about diversity, about we need to get rid of white privilege, need more non-white voices, have basically endorsed the oldest white guy in the Democrat Party, which is quite amazing. Now, to give you a bit of catch up, and of course probably the member of the squad who's going through the most turmoil at the moment is Ilhan Omar. She's the Somali-born Muslim congresswoman who represents a congressional district in Minnesota. She of course wears the hijab on her head. The other Muslim in the squad, Rashida Tlaib, sorry, I thought there was a technical problem, but there wasn't. Never mind. Keep going. Yeah, Rashida Tlaib, she's a Palestinian Muslim, but she doesn't wear the hijab. But of course, if you've been following Ilhan Omar lately, her first husband, she left to marry her brother, and then she divorced her brother, and then she remarried who was her first husband. I might just bring up it's not something that I was planning to talk about tonight, but I may as well get you up to speed. I think I mentioned it on an episode of the Uncockables about Ilhan Omar, the breakdown of her marriage, because it's something that Australia's most famous Muslim reformer, Imam Mahmoud Tawhidi, has been investigating. So just bring it up here. There's the problem with it's just me by myself, because then because I'm a man, so I can't do two things at once. I sort of pause talking when I'm bringing up an article. I think I've got this here. Just give me a moment. Here we go. Yes, so more evidence that Ilhan Omar married a brother. So her current husband is Ahmed Hersi. So apparently it was a religious marriage from 2002 to 2008. Had 2 children. Not legally married until 2018. Her divorce from Saeed Al-Mi was finalized, and of course, he's called the Imam of Peace on Twitter. He dug up a Father's Day tweet where she said that her father's surname was Sayed, not Omar Muhammad, and this is her brother Ahmed Elmi. He's actually gay and he lives in London. They did this marriage for immigration and college fraud purposes. Then it was also revealed that she was a homewrecker, Ilhan Omar, because if I go back up here, in this divorce between Dr. Beth Mayet and Tim Mayet, Beth said that Tim, who was a political consultant working on Ilhan Omar's campaign, was... Hang on, there's another technical difficulty. Sorry, Steele is here. He's sort of...
Keep going. They turned up early.
Yeah.
Just ignore it.
Then stop talking to me. I don't know, why is Steele talking to me if he's wanting me to ignore him? That doesn't make sense.
Well, you asked.
Yeah, well, stop answering me. Steele is in the background here. He won't come on camera himself when I'm on. He has to put on his makeup and everything. Yeah, everyone in the chat's excited now. Now, going back to, yes, so in this divorce papers, yes, so Ilhan Omar was alleged to have an affair with this consultant, and now Ilhan Omar's husband is filing for divorce, and of course she's blamed the media attacks for her divorce, which is, yeah, typical, because no one forced Ilhan Omar to have an affair with a political consultant, which has created a FEC investigation as well, because her campaign was paying this gentleman, Tim Mayet, hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign fees. So she's in a real mess, Ilhan Omar, but they're... I'll just play an ad break here.
This is WilmsFront, brought to you by theunshackled.net.
And I'm back. Sorry, I don't know what Steele's doing, but yeah, interrupting my show. Anyway, going back to the squad endorsing, Bernie Sanders. Apparently this was described in the mainstream media as the most coveted endorsement of the campaign, because, well, Trump, he's tried to feed the narrative that the squad is basically running the Democrat Congressional Caucus now, and that AOC is the real Speaker of the House, basically saying that Nancy Pelosi is a puppet of them. And, well, she basically is, because Nancy Pelosi is now doing the squad's bidding, because they've wanted to impeach Trump since they ever got elected to Congress. And, of course, now they are impeaching Trump. Nancy Pelosi has announced that even before the Ukrainian transcript that Trump had with that nation's presidents was released. They were already in motion putting in impeachment. He probably will be impeached by the House because of the Democrats holding the majority, but in the Senate, where the trial takes place, needs a 2/3 majority to convict. The Republicans, they have a majority there. So he will be impeached like Bill Clinton was in 1998, but won't be convicted, so he will still be president. Trump is playing hardball with this. He's using his authority to make sure that no United States ambassadors are going to testify before this committee. The House committees. Adam Schiff is the chair of the main committee that will oversee this in impeachment. And of course, the big news that I broke on the Uncockables on Thursday evening was that Elijah Cummings, he was the one who was going after Trump on a number of fronts. The Democrat congressman representing one of Baltimore's most impoverished districts. He died at the age of 68, and of course Trump got accused of being a racist because he told Elijah Cummings to clean up his rat-infected district, because people said that because it was a majority black district that he was being racist. Which, even though Trump didn't mention race, I think the Democrats and the left were being racist by saying, are you implying that black people don't look after their inner cities? And I remember that the week after Trump made that tweet, Elijah Cummings' apartment was broken into in Baltimore, and Trump tweeted, "Too bad," which was quite mean, but Trump is always... Yes, but Trump didn't speak ill of the dead and sent out a nice tweet about Elijah Cummings' lifetime of work. And of course, everyone in the reply said, "We remember what you said. It's obvious that you didn't write this tweet." What a cop-out. What? Would they have preferred Trump to say, "Oh, Elijah Cummings died, too bad"? I mean, you're asking Trump to be presidential, and when he is presidential in someone's death, you condemn him for it. So what do you want? Of course, Trump is not going to dance on the grave of a dead person. I mean, he didn't do it with John McCain or George H.W. Bush, who he didn't like. So what are you meant to? What's he meant to do? Either he's got to be himself, or he's got to be presidential. But yes, there'll be a special election now in Baltimore's, one of Maryland, where Baltimore is based, a congressional district, and so hopefully the people of that inner Baltimore district vote in somebody who is not going to continue to let their city decay and be rat infested. And apparently, Elijah Cummings, on his deathbed, he was writing out subpoenas for witnesses to Trump's impeachment. So that was on his deathbed, he was trying to get Trump. Imagine like going to your deathbed and like just being obsessed with Orange Man bad. I mean, I don't want to be too mean myself, but maybe just enjoy your last moments with your family. I hope that's not true. There was also another story which, of course, Snopes debunked, said that Elijah Cummings forgave Trump on his deathbed. But yes, of course, the whole impeachment process is bigger than just one congressman. There's 435 there. Now, of course, in the big thing about the Democrat presidential debate it was on Wednesday afternoon Australian time, so it was Tuesday evening US time. It was the CNN New York Times, and Tulsi Gabbard was allowed back into this debate because she reached the fundraising and polling criteria. And so, of course, she is the best candidate because she's anti-war. She is not a partisan hack. She's a military combat veteran, comes from Hawaii. She wants to, given that she knows the cost of war, she believes that the best thing we can do by our servicemen and women is only send them out to fight in America's interest, not Saudi Arabia's interest, not Israel's interest, not the Kurds' interest, not anyone's interest. And you have to, I think, respect that, because she's seen the horrors of war. And so if you've seen the horrors of war, you only want it to be a last resort and end your national interest. But of course, because she is against the neoconservative deep state establishment, she has been mercilessly attacked. She was excluded from the third debate because the formula didn't work out, that she was ineligible for that, which she attacked the formulation of that. Also missing from the recent debate was Marianne Williamson, the inspirational life coach who says those motherhood statements. She wasn't there. And of course, in these CNN town halls on, was it climate change and LGBT issues, they only allow the establishment candidates. They don't allow, well, because it's not just Tulsi Gabbard who's an anti-establishment candidate. There's also Andrew Yang, who's the venture capitalist, whose big thing is the UBI, Universal Basic Income, freedom dividend of $1,000 a month, as he likes to call it. He's got some interesting perspectives, but I don't support his solutions. So Tulsi Gabbard, she's been willing to do outreach to other groups who are not in the wider progressive left Democrat tents. She's been on Tucker Carlson's Fox News program, Tucker Carlson Tonight, multiple times, because Tucker Carlson is a nationalist, America First, and Tulsi Gabbard, she is a nationalist, and she said part of the reasons that she's running for president is because she wants the centre left, the progressives, to recapture nationalism, to bring back nationalism as a universal American value. And so she's been more than happy to talk with Tucker Carlson, because he's of course against all these foreign wars. She went on the Rubin Report with Dave Rubin for a sit down for I think about an hour and a half, and most recently she did an interview with Reason TV with John Stossel. If you don't know who John Stossel is, he's a veteran American TV journalist. He's in his 70s now. He used to work for ABC 2020, their news magazine program, but then he became a libertarian educator over with his Stossel program on Fox Business. He's quit that recently to just do educational videos for Reason TV. So he sat down for about 45 minutes with Tulsi Gabbard. They talked about foreign wars, and then, of course, I'm not sure if many of you know who John Stossel is, but he put his libertarian positions to her, and also questioning her on statism, like why is the government able to do this and that. And I think Tulsi Gabbard, she answered it quite well. I mean, I think it's because she is, on foreign policy at least, she's the most libertarian candidate, and Murray Rothbard, the most famous libertarian, said you should always support the most anti-war candidate. That's why in the 1992 presidential Republican primaries he supported Pat Buchanan. Of course, people say, oh, Tulsi Gabbard, she's a democratic socialist because she endorsed, well, previously in 2016 endorsed Bernie Sanders for president. But if the military budget is on paper 700 billion US dollars a year, and there's all these contingency budgets as well. So even if she was to expand healthcare, educational infrastructure spending, I mean, it'd be more than made up for in cutbacks in defense and the military-industrial complex and all the overseas bases, the weapons contracting, the of course all the different, because the way these military contractors make sure that they can keep the military-industrial complex going is that they strategically place their facilities in every congressional district. So if you close this facility here, then all of your local constituents are going to be annoyed and not vote for you. It's pretty genius. So of course that's another reason why Tulsi Gabbard is a threat to them. So she people have often compared her to Ron Paul, who was the one of the Republican 2008 presidential candidates, and there was the famous, it was called the Ron Paul Giuliani movement, where Ron Paul called 9/11 blowback for U.S. foreign policy, and Giuliani was like, "How dare you say that? You know, you should recant this right now," which Ron Paul didn't, and that astounded people. Most people think that the moment that made Tulsi Gabbard into a household name, the most Googled candidate this presidential cycle, is when she destroyed Kamala Harris, who's trying to be the uber progressive, but when she was a prosecutor in California and attorney general, she kept countless non-violent offenders in prison, including marijuana violators, basically destroyed her credibility as an advocate for criminal justice reform, and Kamala Harris couldn't respond to that, and that's basically ended her campaign. I would say that definitely Tulsi Gabbard is much more feisty than Ron Paul. Ron Paul was about educating the public about the message of liberty. That was what his primary focus was on. But Tulsi Gabbard, her primary objective is educating the American people about the costs of these foreign regime changes, as she calls it, on the troops, our budgets. So that's a big thing, educating people on the cost of war. But Ron Paul was never really feisty. He never, well, you've got to be feisty in the current year because the media is going to hit you on all sides. But back in 2008 and 2012, Ron Paul, their strategy was just to try and ignore him and exclude him as much as possible. But the alt media was booming back then, and so there was plenty of people that Ron Paul could talk to and was willing to talk to. And one of those people at the time was Alex Jones, who was just a fringe conspiracy theorist radio host at the time. Ron Paul was asked, "Why'd you go on Alex Jones?" Was, "I want to promote my message. Why wouldn't I go on that show?" And of course, Tulsi Gabbard has the same approach. But the reason I say that she's feisty is because she doesn't put up with the smears and the fake news that's spread about her. She took the New York Times and CNN to task in the last presidential debate for accusing her of being a Russian asset or agent. She called it despicable because she is a combat military veteran. Why would she betray her country? Now, Hillary Clinton, in a recent podcast appearance, she didn't mention Tulsi Gabbard by name, but said that in the Democrat presidential primaries, the Russians have their eye on a candidate, and also said that Jill Stein, who was the Green Party candidate in 2016, she was a Russian asset, and said that the GOP are grooming a third-party presidential candidate to split the progressive vote, and that will benefit Russia as well. I mean, we're accused of being conspiracy theorists here on the right, but Hillary Clinton 3 years later is still Russia, Russia, Russia. I was robbed by the Russians, and that seems to be the go-to smear even after the Mueller report debunked Trump colluding with the Russians to manipulate social media and other forms of news to win the election. That was debunked by the Mueller report. But Hillary Clinton's still banging on about it, which is quite incredible. And Tulsi Gabbard wasn't going to cop this from Hillary Clinton, so I'll just bring up what she posted on Facebook. Great, thank you, Hillary Clinton. You, the queen of warmongers, embodiment of corruption and personification of the right, has sickened the Democratic Party for so long. I finally come out from behind the curtain. From the day I announced my candidacy, there has been concerted campaign to destroy my reputation. We wondered who was behind it and why. Now we know it was always you, through your proxies and powerful allies in the corporate media and war machine, afraid of the threat I pose. It's now clear that this primary is between you and me. Don't cowardly hide behind your proxies. Join the race directly. Now, the reason why Tulsi Gabbard said that is because Hillary Clinton has been hinting that she might get involved, might run for president again. And I think Trump tweeted that, and Hillary replied, "Oh, don't tempt me." And everyone on the right saying, "Please, Hillary, run again. It'd be great. You'd be Trump's greatest asset. Not only would he beat you, able to beat you twice, but of course he'll be president for the full 8 years he's eligible to be." And so Hillary Clinton clearly learnt nothing, still thinks she's entitled to be president. She still claims that she won the election because she won the popular vote, even though since the Constitution was established, the Electoral College has determined who is president, and you can't change the goalposts because it doesn't suit you. You can lobby to get rid of the Electoral College, but the 2016 Electoral College says that Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton 306 votes to 232. So, and that's also good of Tulsi Gabbard to say, it's me against Hillary Clinton now, saying that you represent the rotten, corrupt Democratic establishment. I'm the hope of the future. I represent a clean start, an honest start. We're going to put America first. We're going to do the right thing by the American people. And so basically Tulsi is very smart by putting her as the antithesis of Hillary Clinton, saying that if you're a progressive and hate Hillary Clinton, you should vote for me. She's basically sidelined all the other Democrat presidential candidates, and it's just between me and her now, which is a good campaign technique. Now, I noticed that the other anti-establishment Democrat candidates, Andrew Yang and Marianne Williamson, they defended Tulsi Gabbard against this Russian agent slur, of course, going back to her military record. Probably the most interesting defense came from Beto O'Rourke, who, well, he used the same defense, but of course he is the worst candidate that is in the race currently. Well, since Bill de Blasio, the New York socialist mayor, has dropped out because Beto O'Rourke, he wants to take away Americans' semi-automatics, and he wants to take tax exemption off religious institutions that don't respect the LGBT agenda. And of course, he's called Trump a white supremacist. He's basically the peak SJW, but good on him for defending Tulsi Gabbard against this attack by Hillary Clinton. I mean, credit where it's due. So Tulsi Gabbard, this is the thing which the establishment don't get these days. If you don't want somebody to get attention, you just ignore them. I mean, that was the strategy with Ron Paul in 2008, 2012. They tried to ignore him as much as possible, which was probably the best approach because, well, he didn't get the nomination and didn't win the Iowa caucuses, which he was projected to, which would have helped give him momentum. But in the current year, people cannot help but name their enemies and smear them. This is how stupid the left have become. They draw attention to their enemies. We shouldn't have this person anywhere near us, but I'm going to draw attention to them. And so when the establishment attacks somebody unhinged, like saying that they're a Russian agent when there's no proof, then it makes ordinary people say, oh, hang on, there might be something to this candidate. If everyone's raging against their throwing out these wild accusations, then it might be something right about her. I should investigate further. So even though the left, they're trying to reassert their dominance, and so is the deep state, they still can't help but shoot themselves in the foot by drawing attention to their opponents and exposing their own, not their opponents' vulnerability, but their own vulnerabilities. I mean, Hillary Clinton, why would she, at the moment, Tulsi Gabbard is still polling about 1 or 2%. Why would you bother drawing attention to a candidate who's polling at 1 or 2%? But of course, Hillary Clinton just couldn't help herself. That was the thing. So I just hope that the mainstream media and the deep state and the political establishment, neoconservatives, they continue to get triggered and just can't help themselves but mention Tulsi Gabbard because they are her greatest publicity machine. I mean, she is great at publicity herself. She'll talk to anybody. As long as they're a decent enough platform, she'll speak to them. Of course, I'd love to speak to her on WilmsFront, but I don't think I'm in the wrong country, and I don't have a big enough, as big an audience as something like the Rubin Report. But yeah, she is doing what politicians used to do: outreach and bringing back, well, as she calls it, civil conversation. She, in her interview with Stossel, she decried that you can't seem to have civil conversations with people you disagree with. Why can't we both agree that we want what's best for our country? We just have a different way of achieving it. And this is the sad thing about the current year. Here. So she's definitely on the right path. And of course, they've also tried to smear her as well because people like David Duke and Ann Coulter and Steve Bannon have said nice things about her. That apparently you're responsible if somebody undesirable in quotation marks says something nice about you. That's your problem, even though you don't share their other beliefs. Of course, this was the same thing in 2016 when Jake Tapper asked Donald Trump to disavow the Ku Klux Klan and David Duke and say that you don't want their support. But the thing is, the Democratic Socialist candidates, they're never asked to disavow Antifa or any other communist group that you don't want their support. That's never brought attention to you. And the squad, they were asked after the ICE Antifa terror attack in, I think it was Oregon or Seattle. They were asked, some Rebel media reporter, it was Rebel News Now, asked them in the corridor, will you denounce Antifa and their terror attack? And they wouldn't. Of course, that's the double standard there. The right is asked to disavow all undesirables, but the left, they just silently don't, or the media doesn't ask them about it, and they silently don't say anything bad about their extreme elements. I will wrap this up at around about 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time because it's just me tonight, so I don't want to go on for too long. I'll just put the entropy link in again. So if you want to ask a question, send through a super chat. What have I got here? It's from Peter Grace. How do I exit urine? Well, through your front. That's how it happens to most humans. Thank you for the question. Now, before I go, Canada goes to the polls on Monday. And now, probably the Canadian federal election went into international headlines when the photos and footage of Justin Trudeau in blackface emerged. There was, of course, the Arabian Nights party in 2001, which apparently he went in blackface even though Arabs aren't that black. And then, of course, there was another one where he was singing Deo at a high school talent show in blackface. And then there was some teachers' college promotional video where he was in full blackface, black hands, and it panned down to his crotch area, and people like Stefan Molyneux and Sheila Grenreid from Rebel said, "Oh, looking at his crotch, it looks like that he's taken the blackface and black man stereotype a bit too far." And of course, Justin Trudeau apologized for this, said, "Oh, it was racist. I should have known better." Now, none of us really care about blackface. It's only the only time it should be deemed offensive if you're doing it to mock and degrade black people. That's the only time it should be considered offensive. Like, well, that was the idea of the old minstrel shows in the 19th century and the United States Deep South. But it seems that the blackface scandal has washed off now, to use the expression. The blackface has washed off. Justin Trudeau has returned back to the issues now. Now it's only, it's a day and a half to go. A few people have asked whether we'll do an Uncockables Canadian election night live stream. The question is, I'd say 99% possible that we won't. Basically, Canada, you're not really that important. I mean, you are a Anglo-Spear nation, but we only care about Canada to just mock. Over the past 4 years, we've only cared about it to just mock your social justice warrior prime minister. That's basically. That's the only time that Canada's been mentioned as just an example of the modern world leader and how potentially horrible they can be. Of course, New Zealand is a bit close to home with their social justice feminist Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. Will definitely be doing an election night live stream for MAGA 2020, Make Ardern Go Away, which will be around about October 2020. But I'll just give a brief overview of the Canadian election landscape. So at the moment, the Canadian Liberal Party that Justin Trudeau leads, which is the centre-left party in Canada, because over in North America, Liberal means, it's another word for progressive. So just bring it up here. So now, it's actually a three-party system in Canada. So there's the Liberal Party, which is centre-left, the Conservative Party, which is the centre-right. This headline says, this is from Global News. This is the outlet that broke the Justin Trudeau blackface video. The NDP, that stands for the New Democratic Party. Now, their leader there is... I'll just make sure that I get his name right. Jamet Singh. So obviously that's him on the far left with the green turban. He was born in Canada, but he is clearly of the Sikh religion, Indian heritage, and so this article has got a nice summary. So this is the latest poll. It has the Liberals down 5% to 30% primary vote. The Conservatives, who are led by Andrew Shearer, who's pretty much a mediocre Conservative, they're down 2 points. And you have the New Democratic Party on 20%. They're at 5%. So basically, a lot of the Liberal Party's progressive vote has gone to the NDP. We have the Green Party on 8%. Then we have what's called the Bloc Quebecans, because remember that Canada is a bilingual, bicultural country. The province of Quebec is a French-speaking and cultured province. And so a lot of the election announcements have been made in both English and French. So that's obviously the Quebec, provincial provincial rights party. And then there's Canadian People's Party. I don't know much about them, on 2%. So that's an Ipsos poll that was published on Global News. So the most likely outcome here is that it'll be, because at the moment Liberal Party has a majority, it'll probably be a Liberal New Democratic Party coalition. It'll most likely be a hung parliament, and so there'll be that coalition. So you'll probably get Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister, Japnath Singh as Deputy Prime Minister. So not a lot will change, but it's clear that Justin Trudeau is no longer the social justice male feminist pin-up boy. I mean, it might be due with the blackface, but he's also had several other scandals in his government. There's been a corruption scandal involved with energy contracts, which his Attorney General had to resign, and which an ombudsman said that Justin Trudeau inappropriately intervened with. There's been a number of sex scandals in his Liberal Party, with their male MPs not recontesting. A good shout out will have to go to their Rebel News Canada now, because of course Rebel News, it originated in Canada. Ezra Levante used to be on the Canadian conservative news network Sun News. When that shut down, he began Rebel Media. Of course, it has had expansions into the UK and even here in Australia, but it's still it's come back to Canadian focused, and so their reporters have all been on the ground in Canada. David Menzies, one of their provocateurs, he tried to approach Andrew Shearer, the Conservative leader, to ask whether he believed in free speech, and David Menzies got arrested for his trouble, which was quite incredible. The reason why David Menzies doesn't get the credit that he's deserved is because David Menzies is quite old. But in the final days of the Canadian elections, they've had a official state visit from Greta Thunberg, the 16-year-old Canadian teenager. And so she was recently in Calgary, which is one of the Canadian provinces there. And I'm trying to get the name of the Rebel News correspondent who did this video. I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to... Yes, but one of their reporters did confront Greta Thunberg, and you can watch that on the Rebel News channel. We're so used to calling it Rebel Media, but it's actually changed its name to Rebel News now. It's had quite, like, obviously, because it is a huge alt media outlet, everyone will know that it's had periods of turbulence over Rebel Media, but it's always come through. I'm going to wrap up in about 5 minutes time, so it's your last question to get over on Entropy and interact with me. I'll just put the link again in the chat. It wasn't just Lauren Southern, there's also Faith Goldie, Gavin McGuinness left, even the co-founder, Brian Lilly, left the Rebels. So, but they've got a good team around. I mentioned probably the most high-profile ones now are David Menzies and Sheila Gunn-Reid. They're doing great stuff. And, of course, Ezra, well, he's an unbreakable figure in, well, not just Canada, but in the global alt-media movement. All right, so that brings us to the end of this Sunday night edition of WilmsFront. Of course, I will try to bring you as many WilmsFronts as possible on a Sunday evening. The Wednesday and Friday night shows, they will always take place at 7 p.m. Melbourne time on the Tim Wilms YouTube channel. The Sunday night will always aim for 7 p.m. Melbourne time, but there will be some Sundays where I just won't be able to put a show on, or might have to delay it. But I will do my best to make sure I can bring you a Sunday night show, because as tonight there was so much to catch up on, mainly international news. Brief trip back to Australia, the main issues there has been, well, Christina Keneally, the shadow Home Affairs Minister, she for some reason wants us to bring back ISIS brides to Australia, saying we have a moral and legal obligation to do so. She's basically the government's, Morrison government's greatest asset now, because she's just so anti-free speech, bringing back, basically being an apologist for a lot of the worst aspects of Australian society. And there was a report in the Australian on Friday where it said even her Labor colleagues are sick of her. And of course, then the Morrison government, they're trying to overturn the Medivac laws, which means that medical professionals can decide if asylum seekers over on Nauru or Manus Island can come to Australia for medical treatment. So the decision's taken out of the government hands, which seems quite undemocratic that unelected doctors get to do this. And of course, there's still the drought. If you didn't catch my Friday evening show with Ron Pike, who's a water consultant and third generation irrigation farmer, make sure that you check it out. It's on live replay on the Tim Wilms YouTube channel. It was a very heartfelt, emotional one, because it's both Liberal and National parties. Of course, Labor and the Greens are not much better, but it's Liberals and Nationals who've been in charge federally over most of the past 23 years. And of course, the Liberal Nationals have been in a government in New South Wales since 2011. And the drought is affecting New South Wales probably the worst. So make sure you check out that for some actual real facts about how this drought was self-inflicted, basically due to government policy and bureaucratic mismanagement. Now, the alt media lineup on this Sunday night doesn't end with my show. Dia Beltran is up with another debate at 9 p.m. Melbourne time over on her channel. And of course, Monday evenings at 9 p.m. it is XYZ live on the Matty Rose live YouTube channel. Then, of course, on Tuesday evening on the Unshackled main channel, I co-host Trans-Tasman Talk, 7 p.m. Melbourne time, with my New Zealand counterpart, Dewey de Boer, where we compare Australia and New Zealand's news for the week, given that we are the Anglosphere nations of the South Pacific. Then, of course, Wednesday nights, I'm back with another WilmsFront, 7 p.m. Melbourne time. Then Dia Beltran's weekly live stream at 8:15 p.m. Melbourne time. Then, of course, the centerpiece of the Australian alt media cycle is the Uncockables, 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time on its dedicated YouTube channel. The Uncockables, of course, has its own website at theuncockables.com, which has the archive of episodes and also links to subscribe to it on podcasts. And of course, WilmsFront has its own dedicated website at timwilms.com, and this show is also available on your favorite podcasting platform. And of course, WilmsFront is an Unshackled production, so if you want to support WilmsFront, please support The Unshackled. You can become a premium member at theunshackled.net/membership, or you can directly donate at theunshackled.net/donate. And we are also on subscribestar.com, the free speech crowdfunding platform, subscribestar.com/theunshackled. Just going to check entropy one more time. Last chance to come on over. Thank you everyone for interacting with the chat. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Now remember, YouTube is suppressing views, and it's also trying to hide shows such as this showing up in your news feed through algorithmic manipulation. So make sure if you haven't subscribed to the channel that you have, and also click the bell to allow notifications so that you're notified whenever WilmsFront goes live. Otherwise, YouTube won't tell you. And also, please give this episode a thumbs up and comment down below. That also helps as well. And of course, please visit theunshackled.net on a regular basis to catch up on all the latest news. Other Unshackled productions are, of course, my colleague Steel Archer's Detonation program over on the Detonation YouTube channel. And then, of course, on the Unshackled main channel, not only is there highlights, features and segments from WilmsFront and other Unshackled productions, but there is also the report from Tiger Mountain released on a regular basis from Richard Wollstonecroft. So I think I've given all of the... Oh, yes. Don't forget, if you want to interact with me regularly, make sure you follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/WilmsFront, twitter.com/WilmsFront, gab.com/WilmsFront, and gab.com/TimWilms, and minds.com/TimWilms. All right. That's all, folks, from me tonight. Please enjoy whether it be a Manic Monday or a Blue Monday, or you're beginning your working week, take it easy. I'll be back on Tuesday evening with Trans-Tasman Talk, but until then, take care, and thanks everyone again for watching and interacting and your support.
Thanks for tuning in to WilmsFront. Visit timwilms.com or Rational Rise TV to view the archive of episodes. And keep visiting theunshackled.net to view all our shows, and to keep up with the latest real news and analysis.